Welcome to the CP Media Podcast, brought to you by Team CP, your endurance coaching specialist. I am the medium man with the mo, aka Angus Petrie, and joining me, of course, is our one and only team captain, Richard Greer. It's Wednesday, mate. Welcome back.
Good stuff. Well done, Angus. You're fired up. I expect some dance moves maybe next week.
Some dance moves. Well, our music, our start music certainly gets the blood pumping, doesn't it?
It certainly does. Certainly does. How are you getting on this week?
I'm very good, Richard. Yes, no, it's been a good week, and we're gearing up. We're just on a bit of a sort of a semi-rest week. In fact, I've just actually got off the bike, just trying to turn the legs over tonight, but got a bit of a 6-hour solo to do in the weekend, Rich.
Good. That's good. Good to put your toe on the start line and push go and see what you're capable of, eh?
Well, it's been a long time since we've sort of, I suppose I did the cyclocross series throughout, but, a serious race, it's been a while. We're so lucky to be able to do these. Half the world still can't do these sort of things. So great to support our local event. The Blue Dog Events team, Rod and Jane, do a fabulous job every year. So it's great to get there and support them. And we're going with a bit of a Team CP contingent. We've got a few teams entered.
Yes, yeah, no, it's going to be awesome. There's more than 20 people that are going to be out there ripping around the track, which is going to be cool. And I'm going to head out to the Crater Rim Ultra, which is the next day, and cheer on a whole bunch of people that are doing that as well. So it's a big weekend in Christchurch this weekend.
It is a big weekend, and it's a big weekend for Team CP athletes, so all the best to everybody involved. But speaking of things that are big, yes, we have a big show. We have some big hitters here tonight, Rich. Oh, well, there we go. So Rich has got Kiwi internet issues again by the sounds of it, but we have got an absolutely fabulous show tonight for you. We've got Oska is going to finish the show, and we're going to do a bit of a tech talk and talk watches tonight, actually. Rich, you're back. Good. Welcome back, Richard.
Thank you. Carry on. You're doing a great job. Carry on, Oska.
Thank you for joining me. Richard Jackson, we're going to catch up with him, and he did an absolute epic run the other weekend, so just chomping at the bit to hear all about that. But first of all, Richard, would you like to introduce our first guest?
100%, yeah. Holly Budge. So Holly Budge is chiming in from the UK in the midst of lockdown right at the moment. So Holly is a pretty awesome character. She's spent quite a lot of time in New Zealand, actually. She's a world record adventurer, a conservationist, and really looking forward to chatting to her. Holly summited Mount Everest. I don't think I've actually talked to someone that's actually got to the top of the mountain. I've read so many books, so it's going to be awesome to talk to her a bit about that. She was the first woman to skydive over top of Mount Everest. So I'm not even sure what makes you want to do that in the first place, where that idea comes from, Richard. Exactly. -40 jumping out of a plane. And she's also more recently raced across 1,000 Ks across Mongolia on horseback over 9 days. As the founder of a charity, How Many Elephants, which has fundraised over £400,000 for basically conservation of elephants in Africa, which is pretty amazing. She also did the Coast to Coast in New Zealand, which was another sort of out of the comfort zone. So she's done lots of different stuff. So looking forward to talking to Holly about challenging herself, pushing her boundaries, and inspiring others to take action. So have we got Holly in the background there?
We certainly do, or I thought we did. There we go. There she is. Good greetings, Holly. Good morning to you.
Hello. Good evening to you guys.
Holly, you mentioned it's been raining for 10 days, but the sun's out today. That's exciting.
The sun is out today, so I'm quite excited about that. It gets you down a bit, the constant rain and grey skies. But when the sun is out, everything is a million times better.
Brilliant. Good stuff.
Yeah.
And how are you at the moment? What are you working on at the moment? You've been back in the UK since just before lockdown that you got back there, but it was actually planned. You didn't sort of dash off there.
No, I literally did coast to coast. Then my mum came out, and she was one of my support crew. And then we went off, did a bit of traveling around New Zealand, and then flew home just in the nick of time, really, because then we went straight into lockdown. So yeah, that's how that worked out.
Well, some would say in the nick of time. Some would say a bit early. Really, to be fair, could have stayed and been locked down here in lovely New Zealand.
That wouldn't have been a hardship.
No.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Holly, the life that you lead now basically started from the moment that you did your first skydive. Which doing some research about what you've done sounded pretty awesome. Tell us about your background and the story of making your way to New Zealand.
Yeah, so I went to New Zealand when I was 21, and I did I was just traveling. I actually went with my brother, and I did a tandem skydive. And that 60 seconds of adrenaline, that 60 seconds of sheer terror completely changed the course of my life forever. I decided in that moment that I wanted to be employed as a skydiving camera woman. That was a fairly far-fetched goal because I knew nothing about skydiving, I knew nothing about filming, and I didn't really know anyone in New Zealand. But that didn't matter. I set myself this goal. And I was also pretty blown away that people were actually getting paid to jump out of perfectly good aeroplanes every day of the year. And funnily enough, my careers advisor at school hadn't mentioned this to me. So I went back to the UK with this big goal of mine, and I was working as a graphic designer in London. And I saved up enough money to go back to New Zealand, put myself through my skydiving course. And several months later, with lots of fun, but lots of dedication as well, I managed to score my dream job, and I was getting paid to jump out of aeroplanes up to 10, 11, 12 times a day, every day. So it was a brilliant job. It only took about 3 skydives to pay for my rent for the month. So I've never been as rich as I was when I was 21, or disposable income. Yep. But what it did do, when I achieved this goal, it gave me this massive confidence and self-belief that I could achieve whatever I put my mind to, or I could at least have a go. So I've tried to hang on to, for the last 2 decades, I'm now 41, and I've tried to hang on to that positive mindset, that 21-year-old mindset where you're not overthinking it, you're not procrastinating, you just go and do it. So that mindset has taken me on some pretty incredible adventures around the world.
That's
so
right.
Thank you, New Zealand.
So did you, like, basically from then throughout your skydiving career, was it based in New Zealand, was it?
Yeah, pretty much so. Yeah, in Taupo was my base in New Zealand.
Fantastic. That's awesome. You have done some amazing things, from skydiving over Mount Everest, which I talked to right at the start, climbing it itself, racing 1,000 kilometers across Mongolia on horseback. How do you get involved in these things? You talked about that mindset of basically, let's go and give it a crack, and the confidence to do so. But how do you actually turn up and actually climb Mount Everest? How do you get involved in a race across Mongolia?
Yeah, it's a good question. So when I heard about Skydive Everest, as a skydiver, I knew that was an opportunity I didn't want to miss out on. And it was also a world first adventure. So I rang up the organizer and told him I was interested in joining the team. And it quickly became apparent there were no other females signed up on this trip. So I knew that was my hook for getting sponsors on board. So the organizer said, "Great, can I count you on board, Holly?" And I said, "Yep, that would be brilliant." And he said, "That will be £24,000. So I said, "Yeah, absolutely, count me in." I didn't have £24,000 just sitting there, but I thought by saying yes and committing, I would then sort of, deal with the finer print later and just go for it. And try and get these sponsors on board. And that's exactly what I did. I managed to get sponsors to buy into my passion and my vision. Now, skydiving Everest was interesting. The way it panned out, nothing could have prepared me for. We flew up to 29,500 feet in a small aircraft that had never, a Pilatus Porter, that had never flown to that height before. And so we didn't know if the plane was even going to make it up to that altitude. I then jumped out, freefalled for 1 minute, pulled my parachute at 18,000 feet and landed at 12,500 feet.
Question: how do you count a minute as you're skydiving? Like, I just imagine the whole sort of going on. Like, what did that's a minute sort of thing.
Well, a lot of people think because I was jumping higher, the proportions of the skydive would change, but it was actually the same proportions as what I was doing in New Zealand, just way higher. So in New Zealand, I was jumping out of a plane at 12,000 feet, and on this expedition, I was landing at 12,500 feet.
Right, okay, so the free fall time is the same, the flight time was the same in landing. Yeah, okay, makes sense.
Yeah. So my parachute was 3 times the size of my normal chute to make up for the higher altitude, the thinner air. And I actually fell out of the plane. So that definitely wasn't on the cards.
Okay,
the door opened. I move to the door to give my count. My camera flyers outside. I'm going ready, set. And the next thing I feel this hand on my shoulder pushing me back into the plane. And I had too much momentum and I just was ready, set, and I was backpedaling in the door and I actually fell out of the plane. So it was pretty scary right then. People say, was skydiving Everest an incredible experience? No, it was pretty terrifying because the clouds, when you're in those environments, the minute you see those clouds, you can very quickly be engulfed in those clouds. And by the time I fell out of the plane, it was almost complete cloud cover and I had no visual on the ground beneath. So when I was jumping in New Zealand, you could pull your parachute and you could be anywhere and you just knew the terrain like the back of your hand. Plus you had Lake Taupo as a reference point.
But it's all visual. You're always diving when on a clear day,
visual. Absolutely, all visual. So to have that taken away from you is pretty scary stuff. So I came through the clouds and that's when I got the first glimpse of the mountains. But to be honest, that was kind of secondary. The priority was finding this landing area and getting back there safely, because there were very few other places to make a safe landing. So I got back to there, I managed to land there, and about 2 minutes after I landed, complete whiteout, and I couldn't see a meter or two in front of me. So I felt very fortunate to walk away from that jump. A couple of days later, the same thing happened. A team of jumpers got out. Pilot said, don't let them out. They'd already gone. And the cloud actually went all the way to the ground. So they had no visuals. And one girl broke, I think she had broke her back or her legs. She had a pretty nasty accident. And one guy landed in a yak farm. Don't know how well it went for the yak. But it was a pretty extreme place to be, trying to find an alternative landing area. So I did that, flew home, got upgraded on the way home. My cameraman didn't, so I said, I'll see you in London.
Thanks for your help.
Did 6 live TV interviews on CNN, CBS, BBC News, and that was all quite scary. I hadn't really prepared for the amount of media coverage this was going to get. And then when I got home, it's kind of a common thing, the post-expedition blues. I've spoken to many adventurers about this, and it's definitely a thing. But luckily for me, I didn't have to wait too long. I got a phone call 2 weeks later saying, hi, Holly, would you like to take part in another world first adventure? And I said, yes. What is it? And they said, it's a 1,000-kilometer horse race across Mongolia, riding semi-wild horses. So I had the skill set. I've ridden horses all my life. So I said, yeah, absolutely, count me in. Made one phone call to a woman on the Skydive Everest trip. She sponsored the Mongolia trip. So that was pretty easy to get the sponsorship. And then just to finish on that story, to go back to Skydive Everest, when I first laid eyes on Mount Everest, I knew one day I would be back to climb it, but I knew nothing about mountaineering. So I set about learning how to climb, and I quickly found myself back in the Himalayas. And then several years later, 9 years later, I was climbing Everest. So I think it's just thinking that mindset, you can do anything, you can achieve anything you put your mind to, or you can at least have a go.
And that's part of it, is being inquisitive, isn't it? And actually having the ideas. That's half the thing, is actually looking around, seeing what other people are doing, and seeing what's available. What could I do? And then you've got to figure out how as a secondary, obviously, as you talked about. And
you have to be creative to get sponsors on board. Certainly on Everest, it was harder to get sponsorship, but I got sponsored by an IT company who were promoting Wi-Fi in remote places. So I lugged this modem up to the summit. And then what none of us realized is the Chinese because I climbed from the north side, from Tibet, and the Chinese have spent a huge amount on infrastructure, and you can get fantastic 3G from the summit. So
Right,
I didn't mention that to the sponsors. I let them think that was their modem that was awesome. But the reality is you can post a picture to social media now from the summit of Everest, which is quite funny.
But that's part of selling that story. Being high on Everest, obviously learning the skills and getting to that point. Being high on the mountain, did you ever doubt your ability to get up, but also down the mountain? Because it's not just about climbing it and getting to the top, it's actually getting down is almost more dangerous. So how do you deal with that, especially when your body's saying no, but your mind is possibly whispering yes?
And that's my catchphrase, is body is screaming no, because your body is like, your lungs are hurting, your legs feel like lead weights. So Everest was 47 days on the mountain above 5,000 meters. So it's not for the faint-hearted. Did I ever question my abilities? I'm going to say no, based on the lead in to Everest. So Everest wasn't my first mountain. I bagged quite a few other big mountains in the Himalayas before going to Everest. So I knew roughly how I fared at altitude. And I say roughly because you could be brilliant at altitude 9 times and the 10th time it will bite you in the bum. So there's no, you just don't know. Every time is different. But I'd definitely done my my training, and I'd had a really good lead in. It wasn't day one. But I say that because I met people on Everest that had never stepped foot on snow before, or never put on a pair of crampons, and they were trying to go to the summit. So I never questioned myself, because I knew that I had the skills and the knowledge, and I knew that I'd done the right preparation to be there.
Over what, 10 years, effectively? 9 or 10 years, is it?
Yeah, a long time. So when people say, what do I have to do to climb Everest? It's like, go and climb other mountains. Go and learn how to survive on a mountain, because when it goes wrong, you don't want to be relying on somebody else to help you out. You've got to be self-sufficient.
And part of that self-sufficiency thing, you climbed with just you and another person, just the two of you effectively, did you? Is that what happened?
So I was pretty unique in that way, or quite rare to climb Everest as a 2-man team. So I climbed with a Sherpa called Jangbu, who I'd climbed and worked with on other mountains, because I'd worked in the Himalayas as an expedition leader. So I knew Jangbu well, and he was just a brilliant climbing partner to have on Everest. But we climbed very much as an equal team. So my backpack was of a similar weight to his, and we did everything. He wasn't waiting on me hand and foot. We really did it as a team. So we'll touch back on that story in a minute, because I know one of your questions coming up later. I'll come back to that.
Brilliant. Everest, one thing, like, the more, when I first sort of discovering Everest and reading around, it's like, I'd really like to do some of that. But now with kids and family, and basically the lottery of climbing high on mountains, obviously that affects others as well. Did thoughts of family and friends affect your decision making?
I wouldn't say affect. Definitely there's a sense of guilt when you're doing these kind of expeditions. Like, I can't even think I'm very fortunate in that I have fantastically supportive parents. And when I went home at 21 and said I'm moving to New Zealand to jump out of aeroplanes, they said, fantastic, go for it. My mum then came out, she did a skydive. She was there for coast to coast, incredibly supportive of what I do. And I think they also have a real faith in my abilities to make good decisions. So I think they trust that I'll, do the right thing and back myself to make those good decisions. So I am fortunate. But just before the summit, my tracker fell off the mountain on their screens. So it was on the whole time. It fell off and was for 16 hours at the bottom of the mountains. And people that I'd never met before, the messages coming in on their tracker and everything were, Holly, come in, please come in. We've been we haven't slept for a night. We've been refreshing our screen, and this is people I've never met. So in immersed in following the adventure, they sort of feel like they know you. And so for my family, that must have been absolutely terrible, because it just looked like I'd just fallen off the mountain.
Did the tracker actually disappear, or was it actually just reading in a different spot?
It was just reading a different spot. So a really bad moment to have a glitch.
At the bottom. Not stupid.
Not great.
That's when technology isn't good. Actually, it's best just not to know anything. And I'll call you.
I'll tell you one thing, Richard, having the tracker actually has revolutionized my adventures for my family, because they can contact me all the time. Whereas before, when I was doing some other mountains, they literally didn't hear from me for a few weeks.
Just had to forget about you. But now they can basically be involved.
Yeah, so I can now chat to them.
yeah, brilliant. Dealing with the pressure of expectation, must be a massive thing, especially when you've done a whole bunch of these things and the phone call comes to say, would you like to do this as well? I mean, we all deal with that from time to time at various levels. After all the adventurous missions and things that you've completed, how do you go preparing for the coast to coast, what I mentioned about? Like, this is Holly Budge. She's amazing. She's done all this amazing stuff. Righto. Would you like an entry into this? And what did you, it was about November, like 2 or 3 months before the event. Like, okay, let's go and have a crack at this then.
Yeah, and it was terrifying because, you know, I'd never kayaked before. I'm not a runner, and I'd never done any road cycling prior to coast, so really putting myself out of my comfort zone. 3 things out of 3 that are out of the comfort zone. And being a Kathmandu ambassador was fantastic, and I loved every minute of it, but it also did add, I wasn't sort of the silently just going under the radar doing my thing. That was all press interviews, and the TV crew were down there on the Waimak when I was doing my grade level 2 kayaking course. So yeah, I thought, God, I just don't do things by halves in that respect. I didn't make it easy for myself. And it was tough. I have a fear of fast moving water, so I was a dithering wreck when I started kayaking, and I went with Top Sport, and Len was like, you know, you're not as strong as I thought you were going to be at kayaking, and I was like, yeah, I know, Len, it's really pushing me. But I managed to get over that. My landlord in Franz Joseph, me and my husband were living in his granny annex. Mike Charles, he's absolute legend. He's done coast to coast many times, and he was the other part of my support crew. And he really helped me and gave me massive confidence. He's actually doing coast to coast next year, so he's hard into his training. But yeah, he really helped me with the kayaking. So we'd go out on Lake Maparika in France, just next to where we were living, and it was just still water, but it just gave me that time in the boat to try and get my head around it. And I did 2 runs down the Waimak prior to coast. And to be honest, Richard, on the day I fell out twice and hadn't fallen out before the coast. And yeah, I just, after those falls, I fell out twice in the first hour, and it took me 5 hours, 20 minutes to get down the Waimak, and the water was high, as you know. And I just got really angry with it. Just got really aggressive. Just come on,
look out, beast mode, bring it on, Holly.
Yeah, totally. Any stewards on the side would have been like, oh my God, she really wants this. Literally going for it, just full attack mode, and I did it, and I got there, and I completed coast to coast, and my goal was only ever to get to the finish line. I didn't care about time, because I knew I wasn't in a position to be competitive. I'm not definitely not an elite athlete. So it was an incredible experience, and I would highly recommend it to anyone, but it was tough. It hurts.
Yes. So going back to that initial question of dealing with expectation, is that basically out of preparation? Is that the key thing that you do, and just focus on what you can do?
Yep. And just having a go, like, what's the worst that can happen? Like, yes, there is expectation, but ultimately it's me putting that on myself. So, you know, I don't think Kathmandu, they weren't putting any pressure on me that I had to be competitive or anything like that. So I just put pressure on myself. I'm the only person.
Yes, good.
doing that.
And at the end of the day, all people care about is actually, Holly, are you happy with what you did and your effort?
Yeah.
And if you're happy with that, then everyone else is happy with that as well, aren't they?
I am. I have my finishing medal here.
Oh, good. Look at that. Wear it most days.
Yeah, I think I worked hard for this. I'm excited.
Yeah, good stuff. That's awesome. It always doesn't necessarily go to plan, doesn't it? And to enjoy success, we need a few hardships along the way. But it has actually gone well for you most of the time, because you're standing here after jumping out of planes lots and climbing up Everest and dealing with that sort of stuff. Can you describe a hardship and how you have used this to shape those future decisions about what to do, when to do it, how to do things?
Yeah, I've definitely, it can seem from the outset that everything just goes swimmingly and it's perfect, but it's kind of like the iceberg theory, is you're only just seeing the top bit. Everything underneath is not necessarily the same picture. So probably one of my times of greatest hardships was on Mount Everest. The reason I climbed as a two-man team was I was the only girl in a team of 16 guys.
Right. Okay.
And it very quickly into the 9-week expedition became apparent that these guys were it was like a lowbrow 60-day stag do, where it was a real boys club and pack mentality, and the average word to describe a woman was prostitute and words like this. And it was horrendous. I didn't even feel comfortable going into the dining tent. But the defining moment in that came when I got really sick. I couldn't hold any food in for a week. I was at base camp. I felt my dream was slipping away. I felt all my training was going down the pan, all my strength. So I moved out of my tent in with the Sherpas, who were my friends. And but during that time I was sick in my tent, not one of those guys came to see if I was okay. And they were only 3 or 4 meters away from my tent at any point. So I realized then, if someone doesn't have your back at base camp, they most certainly don't have your back higher up on the mountain.
No. And that's just, is that just out of the fact, well, she's one less. Okay, good. Now it gives me more of a chance, maybe.
Do you know, I don't know. Everest is a very strange place in that it attracts all sorts of people, and it's a real concoction of ego and fear. And when you put those two together, people behave quite strangely at times. To be honest, it wasn't a problem for me at the time until I summited several weeks later. I had a brilliant summit. I sat on the summit, just me and Jangbu had the summit to ourselves for half an hour, blue sky. Amazing. It was an incredible, we weren't so lucky on the way back down. We got caught in a storm at 8,300 meters for the night. But these guys, for whatever reason, didn't like that I'd summited before them. Half of them didn't summit. And then this hate campaign was launched on social media, their friends and family. It's a long story. I can't tell it all now, but basically I had to end up getting legal action when I got home because of character defamation, libel, slander. Now, when I got home, a lot of people came out of the woodwork, men and women, to say that they had also experienced this on Everest, this bullying, this harassment, discrimination. It was horrible. And I've never been a victim of bullying before, and it really floored me. It really punched me in the guts. And it was horrible, and you feel totally alone with it. So I guess the reason I'm sharing this is if you are experiencing that, and you don't go through that alone. Don't suffer in silence. You have to reach out to people, because it really was horrible being stranded at base camp and my family relaying what people were saying. I was getting really horrible messages, and I wasn't able to defend myself because I didn't, didn't have really good internet. And it was just shocking how that sort of jealousy led, and bruised egos, what that led to. And I think it is quite a common story. So sorry, I'm conscious of time, but that was the short version of that story.
So going forward and shaping decisions in the future, that's just actually sharing that story and sharing that with others to say, actually, you don't need to put up with those sorts of things.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So now the minute I witness ego and bullish behavior, it's just, you've lost me. The shutters have gone down, and I'm like, I don't want to deal with that.
Yeah, yeah.
So I just can't relate to people that are fueled entirely by their egos. It's not needed.
Yeah, 100%.
If you've got preparation and skills, you don't need ego.
Exactly. You don't need to be you just focus on what you need to do. Absolutely. Holly, you're not just Holly Budge the adventurer, though. You're ticking off world first. As I mentioned at the start, you've also have a pretty awesome charity that's raised over £400,000, which is amazing. Tell us a little bit about that, and also your adventure focus going forward.
Yeah, so my charity, I founded it when I was doing a master's 7 years ago. I was studying sustainable design. So my background before I went skydiving was design, and that's kind of been an underlying career throughout, running alongside the adventures. And I was actually studying a material called vegetable ivory, which is almost identical in color and texture to elephant ivory, but it's a sustainable nut from a palm tree from South America. And it was its material similarity to elephant ivory that got me researching the African elephant crisis. Right. And I was so shocked by the statistics that I was reading. I wanted to create an awareness campaign, a design-led campaign to really raise awareness of this issue. So my exhibition showcases 35,000 elephants on a wall, which is the annual poaching rate in Africa. And I also built this necklace, which was 96 elephants cut in vegetable ivory. It's won 5 awards so far. It's a pretty striking piece. So in a nutshell, it's about using design as a really powerful communication tool to bridge the gap between scientific data and human connection. So when I say 35,000, we can't visualize that. But when you see 35,000 elephants, it's really impactful. And I've purposely avoided using any gruesome or gory images. And that's allowed me to connect with audiences such as schools, children, and adults that wouldn't necessarily normally be able to, excuse me, to connect with that issue. So very passionate. The exhibition's traveling around the world, or it was pre-lockdown. But also the stars have aligned now, Richard, with where does my passion for adventure, conservation and design, where does that meet? And that is with this charity, because I use my adventures to raise money for the charity. And my adventures have taken on a new turn. Like, gone are the days of world firsts and world records. That just doesn't interest me at all anymore. It's all about adventure with purpose. So I've spent time on the front line with 2 all-female anti-poaching teams, and I can tell you it blows adventure out the water. Like, it was pretty scary. I was pretty exposed. I was out on patrol with armed rangers. They've all got AK-47s. I don't. We're in the middle of nowhere. We're on overnight patrol. It's pitch dark. There's wild animals around the corner, and there's signs of poachers. And these guys aren't messing around. A lot of these poachers are armed and dangerous. And you just think, these women are my lifeline. Without these women, I'm a totally dead woman. Yeah. So it was like being a war correspondent. It was pretty real.
Holly, how many people, like, I think, if I think back when I first heard about this charity, you go, I've heard plenty about, poaching of the elephants and for the ivory and things. And I guess you just sort of take it in your stride that that's what goes on, and there's nothing really I can do. Clearly there is plenty of avenues to help. But when you take this to schools and other places like that, how many people actually don't know anything about this or don't actually know it exists?
Most people have no idea of this scale of the poaching crisis. And I was really shocked by that. So yeah, I guess what my campaign is doing is really bringing that message home to people, to say no problem is too far away. I think it's a naivety to think that any problem is too far away to affect you. I think COVID-19 has demonstrated to all of us that the world, everything is connected. So whether we're talking about biodiversity loss, climate change, or COVID-19, it all reflects our fragile relationship with nature. So, yeah.
I've just put your website up address there on the screen there now, Holly. And so if anybody is interested to get involved with this great cause, there's plenty of links on Holly's webpage there, ways of purchasing some great items. I see one of your prints in the background there that I was having a look at today, and all sorts of ways to get involved and to help out there. And
the charity website is howmanyelephants.org. And these prints have actually become my best sellers, and 100% of the profits go to these all-female anti-poaching teams. So very worthwhile. And
obviously, from here, it's a picture of Africa. But
do you know, it's actually not. It's an elephant's head, but everyone's...
well, there you go. It's not as obvious, but what I was going to say is that it is made up of little pictures of elephants, if anybody's wondering what the dots are back there.
Yeah. No, it's funny. I tried to do the shape of Africa, but it didn't quite look right, so we went with the symmetrical.
Brilliant. Well, Holly, before we go, sorry, Richard, you want?
No, carry on. You give it heaps of things.
Before we go, we always like to just throw in a quick 5 questions to all our guests. Nothing too hard, nothing too strenuous. Just a few insights. So, first of all, training morning or night?
Morning, 100%.
Actually, Richard, I think we should be taking a bit of a poll, a statistics on that, because I think just about everybody prefers a morning session than they do a night. Sweet or savoury?
That's a difficult one. I'm going to go both. Somewhere in the middle.
Savoury followed by sweet, I assume, then.
Yeah, good.
No, I can't do that. Yes, no, there needs to be a gap between savoury and sweet. I can't do that.
Training solo or with a mate?
For coast to coast solo most of the time, apart from when I was training with Mike. So a lot of solo time.
Right. A fancy meal out at a lovely restaurant, all dressed up in your best gear, or just a nice, good home cooked mum's meal?
Again, both. I'd quite happily go out, but my mum also makes amazing food, so I could do either. I'm easy on that front.
What's the family dish?
Well, I'm not going to say that because my mum will tell me off, and she's on this call.
Okay, well, we don't want you getting into trouble with mum. Nobody likes to get in trouble with their mother, that's for sure. So, finally, climbing or falling?
Climbing.
I use falling, I guess, as a skydiving reference there, but you prefer to be climbing. You had more.
Yeah, I actually haven't skydived for coming on 10 years now.
Right.
So it's all climbing at the moment.
Very good. Lovely. Well, thank you so very, very much for joining us early in the morning there. I hope that everything goes well from here. All the best for any more adventures that come along. We'll always next time we see your name pop up, we'll watch with interest to see what the next challenge becomes. All the best with your charity and to save some more elephants. That's an absolutely wonderful and commendable thing that you're doing there.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Love your work, Holly.
Thanks for having me. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks very much.
Cool.
Thanks, Holly. See ya.
Yes.
See ya. Good job.
Extraordinary lady, Richard. Extraordinary lady.
Yeah, just say yes, and then we'll figure it out how later on. But also just the way she's making change and actually doing something. And what's my legacy? I guess, isn't it? That's part of that her charity work as well, like using her adventures to do what she does.
I was thinking that too. I've done a lot of saying yes and figured it out afterwards, and it's got me into plenty of great situations, to be fair, a couple of tricky ones probably, but never probably to that scale.
No, that doesn't make, that's 100% next level, isn't it? Absolutely. So maybe we need to work on that potentially.
Correct. But I'm open, Richard. If you've got a great grand scale option like that, I'm always open. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, we'll work on that as well. We might have to have some feedback from listeners.
Correct. Speaking of listeners, viewers, people involved in our community, we were running a little competition over the last week for Mission Mount Summers that's coming up to win an entry to that wonderful event.
Yes, that's
and
right.
Super happy to announce that Lee Butts, the entry is all yours, because we couldn't think of a better thing to do either. It's going to be your 40th birthday, and you're going to clock a K for every year that you've been born. I think that's an absolutely fantastic thing, and who would we be to deny that?
Absolutely, and might as well get a medal for it as well. So hasn't done it before, so might as well turn up and have a good crack at it. So there was heaps of people putting their name down, lots about the awesome scenery and the awesome event and the camaraderie. But hey, there's nothing like a little bit of suffering on your 40th, is there?
I think that's just an absolutely fabulous way to celebrate your birthday. Totally.
Yeah, well done, Lee. Thanks, but no thanks. Something like that. He'll love it. It'll be good.
Yeah, correct. So, Lee, we'll want a full report on how your birthday party goes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, yeah, sorry, Angus.
No, you're right. Carry on, Rich.
Yeah. So next guest, Richard Jackson. So just a little bit of an intro on Richard. Richard's one of our athletes. Fiona's been working with him for a while now. He had the Cable Bay 24-hour run, which was a 10K lap of the Cable Bay Adventure Park. Unfortunately, it got cancelled. So Richard's like, okay, I need to do something. I've done all this training. Let's go and have a crack at something else. So I'm not sure how. We're going to ask him in a moment, but he came up with the idea of let's run the Queen Charlotte Walkway twice. So that's 80 Ks out and then 80 Ks back, solo, no support, nothing else other than a bag drop by the boat halfway, which you can fit both times. Let's go and do that. How about it?
The old case of the old out and back run to the extreme, but Richard, you just ruined it by saying telling everyone he did it solo, because I was just about to give him an absolute rap that I'd heard down the grapevine that he was first to the halfway mark, and he was also first home to the finish.
Yeah, what a good performance. Well, he was. Let's call that. I'm not sure if there's anyone else who's keen to do that on that particular day. So, Richard, are you back there?
Yes.
Welcome, Richard.
I am. Thanks for inviting me on.
No problem.
Yeah, brilliant. Richard, to get underway, tell us about your background. How did you get into ultra running? Is this something that you've been doing for ages, or is it sort of a relatively new thing for you?
No, it's new for me. I've been doing it about 12 months now. So I started off with Fiona 12 months ago. I said that I wanted to do the Maratapu run. That's the first run I decided I wanted to do, and she started training me for that, and I've just carried on from there.
Brilliant. And why the Queen Charlotte? So we're like, there's a lot, like, you think Queen Charlotte, it's all nice and lovely, but it's really steep and hilly. There's lots of vertical to do that. You could have done a slightly downhill tailwind run to be able to do your run. Why the Queen Charlotte?
It was more just finding somewhere where I knew I could have a bag drop. And also, just for the time of year, of being October, I thought about, going through the Arthur's Pass or the Lewis Pass, and I was thinking, well, getting through passes, you got the risk of snow, that time of year, and probably it was lucky that I didn't do something like that, because that weekend it was quite rough in the backcountry. So I'd biked the Queen Charlotte 2-3 years ago, obviously just one way, and I thought, it's not a bad track. There is a fair bit of up and down, and the track's actually rougher than I thought it was when you're on foot compared to a push bike, but it wasn't too up and down. So I thought, well, I'll give it a go. Yeah.
Good. What preparation did you have? What preparation did you do, and also what help out did you have as part of your run?
I pretty much did it all myself. So because of the way it is, I thought there's no point having a support crew. What do they do? You've got, obviously, you've got the Portage Hotel, Punga, Furno Lodge on the way through, but, they could be sitting there for hours just waiting to see me for 10 minutes. So what I did was I rang Cougar Line. I asked them, can you drop a bag off for me, please, at Punga Cove? And they were really great. They were really awesome. They said, yep, we'll do that. That cost $20. I rang Punga Cove. There's a wee phone box down by the bar on the jetty, which is a bit of a tease when you get there, watching everyone sitting at the bar. And they sat it in this wee box, and they said, help yourself. And so I was coming through there about 5:30 in the evening between myself and Fiona. We'd figured out I'd get there about then, which I actually did, bang on 5:30. And I was going to come back through anywhere between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. Yeah, so it went good.
Yeah, brilliant. Good stuff. Preparation beforehand, what did you do there in terms of getting your body ready for this?
Well, it was with the Ultra 24. So everything, all my training really was based around doing a 10.5K loop of a track for 24 hours. So Fiona sort of got me going on it. I said to her about 3-4 months beforehand, I'm going to do this Ultra 24. And she said, righto, we'll get cracking on that. So about 3 months out, we started on the training program. It did get pretty heavy for a 51-year-old. Well, that's what I am now. So all my training was anywhere up to 20 hours. I think some weeks I clocked close to 160K a week. So there's a lot of heavy training. Some long cold nights out running on my own. And then about a month before the Ultra 24 was due, which was the same weekend I run the Sounds, I did a mock run up at Port Hills from Vic Park, and I did a 10.5K loop, basically with about 460 metre ascent each lap. And I did, we worked on doing 15 hours, but I think time I finished, I did 16 hours. So it's about 90K time I got home.
Wow.
So that was my sort of pre-run. I finished that feeling really good. I felt good. Even the next day I woke up feeling good, apart from the odd sore muscles. So I thought, right, rest from there, just wound down from there and into it,
And ready to go. Yeah, fantastic. 150K, so it's 150 or 160? How far was it?
It was 150. It was meant to be 142, but they've changed the track now. When you come up out of Ship's Cove, they've got rid of that big mudslide that everyone tries to get up. It's more of a sidle track. So I got to Punga Cove and it was 75K, and I realised, she's going to be a 150K run, which actually pleased me, because I thought, well, more the better.
Well, it's another 8 bonus Ks, isn't it? At the end there, but 26 hours. I'm sure it wasn't all plain sailing.
No, it wasn't. I was hoping to a bit less, but with everything that happened, I think I did all right. I actually got to the 30K mark. I was just starting to do my descent down into Punga Cove, and I started getting knee pain. So I stopped and did some stretching. My knee didn't hurt when I was stretching, so I just figured it was more just a nerve pinching or something like that. And at the same time, I'm thinking, gee, I'm only 30K into it. I've got all this way to go. And I thought, right, I'll get to Punga. I got to Punga and I spent 40 minutes there, had a good rest. I strapped it fairly heavy with some strapping tape. Had a good rest for 40 minutes, had something to eat and carried on. And it came right for quite a while. And then at about the 90K mark coming back, my foot decided it. My other foot on the other leg decided it wanted to pack a sad as well. So from there, it was pretty tough going. Yeah, but it was
same leg, different leg. Yeah. So my my left knee went on me on the way in, and my right foot went on the way out, and I ended up with a crook left knee and a crook right foot. So the poles came in handy. Yeah. Right. So was that just about, let's just keep moving forward. I can take another step. Let's just see what happens.
Yeah. So when I got back to Punga, it was power walking from there. I tried running. I couldn't get back into a run. So I thought, just keep moving, keep going as hard as I can, as fast as I can, and see what I can do. Yeah.
Get it done. How do you deal with it at 3 a.m.? You're tired. You've got a sore knee. Your body's a bit broken. Things aren't fun at 3 a.m. in the morning, are they? There's no one making you be out there do this. There's no like finish line. There's no rah-rah. There's nothing else. It's just you, and this is your decision. How do you deal with that?
I actually, surprisingly enough, I found it quite easy. I think the hardest bit I found was getting into dark, and then I thought, well, dark's a change. I've run for a while in the daylight. I'll run for a while in the dark. It's a bit of a change up. Put a light on. It's different surroundings, and I think you just got to enjoy what you're doing in the moment and just stay positive. I think once I got back to Punga, had something to eat again. I had a thermos here, I had a cup of soup. I didn't stay for 40 minutes this time. I stayed for only like probably 20 minutes because I still was looking at the time and stuff. And I thought, right, I'm at Punga now. It's all downhill. Just keep moving. And, it's light now at 5:30. You get to see a good sunrise. And from there, you're on the downhill run. So, yeah.
A couple of things. Did you have a plan B or an out? Like you're doing the solo and you're, essentially, in the dark out there on your own. Did you have a plan B?
No, I didn't. But you've got Punga Cove, you've got Furno Lodge. If it really comes to the worst, you could sit there and, you can get the mailboat or the, or et cetera, the Cougar line back. So, for that side of things, the run is pretty safe. I don't think you can come to much harm. There's plenty of people on the track. But, no, I didn't want to have a plan B because then you got no options. You've got to keep going.
So, just jumping in there, just on that, there's another person I work with in Blenheim, and she was out on the track the other weekend, and she saw a whole smattering of gummy snakes and jet planes and things sort of screwing across the track. She sort of went to look under a bush to make sure you weren't sort of hiding under there, Richard.
No, I don't eat gummy snakes.
Okay, that's all right. She was a bit worried.
So what happened when you got back to the car? Like 150k run is a pretty epic sort of a thing to set yourself off. It's a bloody big challenge and but you get back to the car and it's just you and your keys, hopefully, is it?
Luckily my daughter drove me up. So yeah, this was one of the bigger things, probably more than actually doing the run, was how do I get myself home after the run. Good. So my daughter, she drove me up and she went visiting friends. And the other thing I used too was I got a Garmin InReach. I had running, and I had invited her. You had the link, and so she could see right through the run. Even Margaret here back in Christchurch could see right through the run where I was, how fast I was going, and I'd given her a point when I got to a certain part on the track. I said, once I get to that point, because there's no reception, I said just drive out and come and get me. So it worked good. I just sat up and enjoyed the ride home, sort of.
So how was your feeling when you got to the car though? Did you have emotion? Did you have a feeling of success, or was it just time to go home?
I was happy. Yeah, I was happy. Mainly because of dealing with the foot, dealing with the knee, and I thought, and it was pretty sore. I was bent. I just put a shoe on yesterday for the first time since I did the run, and I've got off my crutches, I think, on Sunday. I've had x-rays and ultrasound since then, and my foot's finally gone down. So, in saying that, I was pretty happy. Yeah, but the good thing about it, I thought, well, if I didn't have those injuries, I know I could have done. I would have done really well. So I was happy.
Yeah. Good. Yeah, it's about the effort. Being proud of the effort and what you put in, and having a crack at it. What's next? Have you got anything crazy lined up as a next thing, Richard?
I have. What have I got next? I did sign up for the Craigieburn Ultra, so it's at the 58k one. So I'll go and do that. And I've signed up to the 100k Port Hills Ultra. That's in January, and then obviously I've got the Ultra 24. That'll come up in March again, but the ultimate I'll do next year. I will want to do a proper 100-mile race. So and go back to Charlotte, good feet and good knee.
The Craigieburn Ultra will be just like running to the dairy now, though. After the other weekend.
Yeah, it may be, but I'll just have to run. I don't know. It'll be good. Yeah.
I'll adapt
for that.
Well done, Richard.
Just run fast.
Good stuff.
Thank you.
Very
Awesome.
good.
Love your work.
Thank you,
Love
Richard,
your
for
story.
sharing. Thank you for sharing your journey with us, and an incredible challenge that it was. So a 2 thumbs up from me, because that's a heck of a thing just to go and do on your own. But good use of all your training. So all the best
Thanks,
for the coming races. We look forward to following you as a CP athlete and cheering you on somewhere.
Well done.
No, thank you very much. Thanks, Richard. Thanks, Angus.
Good stuff. Cheers, Richard.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Talk soon. Well done, Angus.
I don't know. I don't know what to say. You know, like I come back to the things that I've done, and you think, God, some people call me crazy for some of the things I've done along the way. But
You feel quite average sometimes, don't you? Like, oh, maybe I need to up my game.
I'm starting to think I do need to up the game, Richard. So I think maybe game is on, because there's
Maybe we need to downgrade the people we get on the show. Maybe that's part of it. It's a little bit better.
Yeah, we're just the beginners some days, I think, Richard, at this game. But that's good. Somebody's
trying to keep things together, aren't we?
correct, and keep them going. Rich, actually, we had a few. Speaking of CP athletes and things, again, we had a few people out there in the weekend doing a bit.
Yeah, the Taupo Ultra is really growing, and we had a number of athletes heading up and doing that. Janelle Wairinga did the 2-person team and completed the 100K event up there. Jared Vandergeest completed the 50 as a first crack at that, and Corey Bowringer did the 100K, which is pretty awesome. So those guys in amongst it. There's also the Motu Challenge, had a couple of wins actually in the short course and the long course duathlon in the females. Belinda William and Hannah Morrison, which is pretty awesome. And then also the Abel Tasman Coastal Classic was on as well. Whole bunch of people doing that, which was really cool. Kayla Cunningham had an absolutely storming run and finished in just a bit over 3.25 hours, I think. So it's really impressive. So a big weekend this weekend. Lots going on right now. Lots of events and things. It's cool to be able to see all the work that people have put in, all the preparation, actually going and experiencing and creating some stories, some adventures as part of these. Yeah,
and a bit of a shout out to the Motu Challenge in the weekend. And if you are an avid watcher of our shows here, you'll have seen a few episodes back on our Kathmandu Coast to Coast special. Sam Manson, who joined us, he managed to pull in a second behind Dougal Allen there in the weekend. It sounded like that there was a bit of a race on there. So shout out to Sam. Good job, mate. That's some good prep for Coast.
Absolutely. No, it's all going on. That's fantastic. We've got a new segment on the show, haven't we? It's What's the Latest? So tonight it's What's the Latest Oska. So Oska's the owner of the Front Runner Combo.
Well, it's not What's the Latest Oska, because, there's nothing wrong with the old Oska, really.
Yeah, no, that's right. Oscar's totally fine. But we're trying to ask him what is the latest. Absolutely. No, good point. Thanks for keeping me on it. So talking technology, specifically GPS watches. Oska, how are you getting on?
Oh, I'm good, mate. It's been a good show. I've enjoyed it.
Good. And you've got everyone done the bedtime routine in your house? Yeah,
Katie's out tonight, so I'm solo.
Yep.
The dishes are done. The child's asleep. I've got my 2 brownie points. I'm out tomorrow night.
Yep. Thank you, mate. Yeah. Good stuff. Oska, tell us about what's the latest. First of all, watches. How can they improve performance? Like, you deal with obviously selling shoes and everything around running, but obviously running is changed over the last few years as the GPS watch has evolved.
Yeah, I guess the first thing I'll say is there's nothing wrong with keeping a diary, handwritten one. We're not trying to get rid of that, but sort of over the last 9 to 10 years, tech's come a long way, and now we can really get some good data out of the things that we're using. Companies like Garmin, Polar, Sunto, and Coros. How fast we're going, heart rate stuff, cadence, some really amazing metrics to do with ground contact time, vertical oscillation, things like that, which can increase the benefit of our training for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, brilliant. And in regards to what do you recommend? Obviously, there's lots of different angles, options for runners and cyclists and things. Is there any sort of key features that you go, right, you need to make sure you've got this?
Yeah, generally what I do, and it's probably a pretty unique approach to sales, is I sort of say to people, write a list of the things you'd like it to do. and your key goals, and then we sit down and try and match the watch up to those goals, and maybe then how much money they'd like to spend. So that's my first sort of recommendation is, look, I want to do coast to coast. In 2 years' time or whatever it is, I need the watch to do these things. Make a list, and then we look at how to pair that up with the watch, because I'd like people to get a good 3 or 4 years out of that investment. And so we're forward planning as well.
Yeah, brilliant. And you talked about those 4 brands for a start as a GPS tracking watch to track our progress, opposed to your Samsung and your Apple watches. They're built for different things, aren't they?
Yeah, there's a big difference between activity tracking and a proper sports watch. Yeah, for sure, 100%.
Yeah. So what's new? What is the latest, Oska?
Yeah, so I think Garmin probably still have the better data and the better app. And so they've got a couple of really nice new watches. Their 745 and their 945. Their Forerunners, which we sell a lot of, and then they've obviously got their Phoenix range, which have some fantastic technology in them for the types of things your people will do. So those adventure type racing, breadcrumb functions. You can load in GPX files. You can tell people where you are. You can download the golf course and see where your golf ball is if you'd like to. The barometric air pressure if you're a fisher and you're out and you want to know, is the weather changing that I don't know about it yet? Helpful for being in the mountains. So there's a lot of safety features involved with those things as well. So I think, Garmin really probably are leading the way in that. And now they've got the Bluetooth music as well in a lot of their watches. So you can have the old Bluetooth headphones on and just carry your watch, no phone required, which is pretty cool too.
Yeah, that's good. Heart rate, that's the one thing that we use a lot with our training as well. And the most watches these days will do a wrist-based heart rate. From your perspective, a wrist-based heart rate versus a chest strap heart rate, where's technology there?
Yeah, look, I'm still not convinced that the wrist-based heart rate is as accurate, particularly, like for me, I don't know if you can see at home, I've got a bit of a bone on my wrist. And so if I'm running and the watch slides up on that bone and it's not making contact with the skin very well, because I'm at the end of a swinging arm doing running at full speed, then all of a sudden that wrist-based heart rate's useless. And so I think, for me, I've found that the wrist base can be out by about 10%. It's pretty good jogging, easy workouts, not too bad. But when we really need it to be, the best, then it kind of lets me down. So I would always wear a strap and recommend that if people were like yourself relying on accurate heart rate data to build a training plan and know when you're fatigued and when you're fresh, and if you're hitting those training zones when you need to be, I would always wear a strap, no matter what the brand. No, I totally agree with that as well. And it is it's a guideline. I think that's where we want to think about our wrist-based heart rate. It is a guide, to be there or thereabouts, but actually you want to know your numbers. And if you wanted to try and run in your anaerobic zone 4 range, which is between 175 and 185, you want to look at your watch and go, if I put a bit more effort and see a response rather than actually it goes down, and that's just frustrating, isn't it? So absolutely. Good stuff. In terms of new players on the field, you talked about Polar as well. That used to be 15, 20 years ago. First, that was the key watch to have, but they're coming online a little bit more as well. Yeah, my first watch was a Polar, and I had the old waist belt for the GPS with the old watch. I don't know if you remember those. Maybe it was the XC800.
Right.
That probably shows that I am getting a little bit old now. And then they kind of disappeared a wee bit. They're great. I think they're a Finnish company. They make some amazing product. So we'll look at getting back. So they've got some nice multi-sport watches, just priced a little bit gentler on the wallet than some of the Garmin stuff, which I think is important. Not everyone's got $1,000, which is a lot of money. You can buy a car for that, first car. So I think that sort of that $600 to $700, that'd be really nice to have a good quality watch that will do some of that multi-sport stuff as well. So they're looking at that with that Vantage. That Vantage range, which I think is important. So we'll bring that into New Zealand to open that up to the market for sure.
Yeah. So to summarize, the key thing is what do you need out of it? So each watch, I've got a Sunto watch on, and it's brilliant because it's got a great battery life, and it's not going to. I can drive over a bus over it, and it'll still be okay. So you check out what your features are for a start, and then sort of work backwards from there. What do you need? What are you trying to achieve as a result of your training and things, and go from there. Anything else to kind of summarize from your perspective?
No, I think it's coming with if you want to come and chat with us, have a really clear plan on what you need that tech to do, write yourself a list, come and talk to us. We've got a great spreadsheet in the shop. We open up like a whole booklet, and we can go through and tick those off, and then you try some, talk about it, and then you give it a good go.
This is actually one of my favorite things, tech and gadgets and things, and I still go by the man who dies with the most toys still wins, but it's all very well having all these, and we just quickly talked about that, and you mentioned about Garmin and they got the best app and all that sort of stuff. One question, or multiple questions, but one. You'll give potential buyers a look at the apps and availability and all those sort of things and teach them how to use that, Oska?
Yeah, so I think that's one thing that we do that maybe others don't is, obviously we like to be involved with shoes as well. But yeah, so if you buy a watch from us, we sit with you for half an hour, get your account set up, get the app set up, teach you some basics. And then you're always open for a chat if you think there's a function there you'd like to use that you're not quite sure. So we do that. It's a little bit difficult now with 4 brands. I have to have a pretty broad spectrum knowledge about 48 watches. So we do our best, but quite often YouTube's my friend. So the old laptop comes open and we have a seat on the couch and figure it out together, which I think is quite nice too.
Yep.
Some of the stuff is I had a guy going on a bike tour in Europe, and he wanted to load the maps in of each motel to motel. He ended up with I think a Garmin Phoenix 5 or 6, and he wanted a big screen mounted onto his bike, and he could plug in where each motel was, and it would tell him where to go. And so yeah, we set that up over about 2 weeks. It was amazing.
Yeah, and I think that's also something else to look for out there. If you're in the market for a new piece of technology for a watch, maybe you've already got something. So I am actually a Garmin user, Oska, but I've always had Garmin bike computers. So I did go down a line for a bit there, Rich, I've been through a couple of Cinto watches and things, and quite enjoyed that. But what I found was I had 2 different platforms and 2 different apps and data in multiple places. So something to consider there is also, if you are running multiple devices, try and stick with the one brand and keep all your data in one place. That way you're more likely to actually use it all and get the benefit out, especially if you're trying to monitor TSS scores and things like that along the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. A lot of that data can be subjective too across brands. So if you're having the one reliable data and they think it means this all the time, then yeah, it'll come out better in the training peaks or the training tilt, whatever.
Yeah.
Yep. And one other thing, Oska, just actually, when shouldn't we use one?
Oh, I like unplugging every now and again. For sure. Like, go run in the hills. Park the car somewhere, find a trail. I think when I'm training, from my own experience, when I'm training, really disciplined for a race, I'll wear it all the time with a heart rate strap, just to know if we're going over the red line. But in the easy weeks, I'm coming back off a break next week, I won't wear a watch. I know my hour loopers, I know my half an hour loopers. I'll just go running, not worry about it too much, because I think it can create some anxiety as well. People think they've got to hit the pace or hit the heart rate, and that if it's not used properly, then that can be not beneficial too.
Yeah, and that's a conversation I had today with a client running the Auckland Marathon, and we talked about just rhythm and running with rhythm and enjoying your running as well. And I said, well, hey, let's put it on let's carry it, but put it in like a waist belt or something like that you still have the data, but you actually have to have a bit of effort to try and see what you're doing, so you can actually just go running and not stress about the pace that you're running or not running. Just go running.
Yeah, quite often I'll just have mine set to heart rate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just
don't worry about anything else, just to make sure I'm not doing anything silly.
Mm-hmm.
Or I'm, and I'll just have the heart rate big, nothing else.
Probably, Rich, we need to move on. But just to summarize things here a little bit, is that one of the most important things is, like Oska says, if you're going to buy a watch or a device or something to measure all that thing, make sure you buy what you're going to use it for, because it's very easy to, like all new products nowadays, whether it be a telephone or a GPS device or something like that, it can do 20,000 things. But the reality of it is that you're probably going to use 2 things of it. So just be careful out there, because they do range in price from, a few $100s to $1,000 or something. And it's very easy to go, oh, well, I need the Binford 2100 watch. And but actually the reality is I don't. So always great if you don't know much about it to come and see people like yourself, Oska. Grab some what the latest is, but also see both ends of the scale and the spectrum there. And don't forget to use the data that you're actually recording. That's the most important thing too. Again, grab that data, record it, use it, and if you don't understand it, get online, and there's plenty of us out there that'll help you divulge all of that information. That's where you come in, Richard.
Yeah. Brilliant. Yeah, absolutely. No, good stuff. Well done. Thanks for your time, Oska. And we'll try and slow down. And Angus was getting pretty fired up about technology, wasn't he? There. So
can we have a whole show on technology? Can we have a whole?
Yep. Talk about it. Maybe not at 9:30 at night, but we can make it happen.
Perfect.
Yeah, good.
Love it. Love your style.
Okay. Look after yourself, Oska. Thanks for your time.
Thanks. See ya.
See ya.
Good work. Job done. Well done, Angus. Another good show in the bag. Hopefully you've learnt lots. What's your takeaway from tonight?
Say yes. Say yes to adventure, Richard. That's the bottom line. Say yes to adventure.
Yep, and figure it out. Figure out how you're going to do it later. But just get involved and see what you're capable of.
100%. Righto, well that is it. That is the end of Wednesday. Wednesday night has come to an end again. It's been great. Thank you, Richard, for joining us. Thank you to our guests, Holly, Richard, and Oska. Thank you to all of you out there that have been watching. Those that listen via a podcast. Again, don't forget, check us out on our Facebook page, on the Team CP Facebook page, or our community page. We're on YouTube. Check us out over there. You can catch us anywhere, really. Check out Richard's website, teamcp.co.nz. If you want a training plan, he's got a deal for you. Until next time, same bat channel, Richard. Go well, spread the awesomeness.
Yep. Well done. Thanks, Angus. Over and out.
See you, team.